The perfect mating, classic versus Spangleback. In the world of canary breeding, mating is the art of creating perfection. But when it comes to the London Fancy Canary, that art becomes a true challenge, and one of the most controversial topics among breeders. The question everyone asks is, what's the perfect mating to get that classic bird with an impeccably clean body free of melanin? Many believe you need to breed one classic London Fancy Canary with another. But the truth is shocking and counterintuitive. The key, my friends, isn't in mating two perfects, but in a combination that might seem like a mistake to beginners. It's a closely guarded secret. The ideal combination to maximize the desired phenotype and produce the best chicks is the mating of a classic London Fancy with a Spangleback. Yes, I know, it sounds crazy. But stick with me until the end, because I'm going to show you the genetics behind it. If this information has already surprised you, you know what to do. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss the rest of this video. The fatal mistake that costs the next generation. Mating London Fancy Canaries can be a minefield, and a common mistake can cost you the next generation of champions. Many inexperienced breeders, in their eagerness to obtain perfect birds, make the fatal error of mating two classic London Fancy Canaries, that is, two specimens with a clean body free of melanin. At first glance, it seems logical. Perfect with perfect generates more perfect, right? Wrong. This strategy, which seems so intuitive, can lead to serious genetic problems, such as fragile chicks, low fertility, or, even worse, a drastic decrease in phenotypic quality over generations. The London Fancy lineage is delicate. If you don't understand the genetics behind its resurrection, you can inadvertently weaken the breed that Pete Renders fought so hard to bring back. It's a disrespect to history and an enormous detriment to the future of the London Fancy. So, forget intuitive logic and prepare to embrace science, because the path to perfection is often the least obvious. The 20% rule. How to multiply your chances of success. Today's main lesson, and the secret that very few breeders share, is the 20% rule. As I've already mentioned, only a small fraction of chicks, about 20%, will display the ideal phenotype for judging. The question that arises is, how can we ensure our work is not in vain? The answer lies in the selection of the Spangleback. By mating a classic London Fancy Canary with a high-quality Spangleback, you are maximizing the genetic inheritance that guarantees the clean plumage color without compromising the vitality of the lineage. Spanglebacks, with their dark marks on their backs, are actually the silent carriers of the ideal genetics. They carry the necessary recessive genes to produce the rare and perfect classic plumage in future generations while preserving the bird's health. Ignoring their importance is a serious mistake. Matings between classics and Spanglebacks not only increases the probabilities of obtaining chicks with the ideal phenotype, but also strengthens the breed. It's a long-term investment that rewards you with the beauty and purity that define the London Fancy. The hidden genetics. Deciphering the melanin code. To understand why we made a classic with a Spangleback, we need to dive into genetics. Remember that the London Fancy Canary is the result of a mutation that causes melanin, the dark color, to appear only on the wings and tail, disappearing from the body after molting. What defines perfection is the absence of melanin on the body, but what guarantees the breed's strength is the genetics that produce it. The Spangleback, which has dark spots, is not a defective bird. It carries the gene that produces melanin on the body. By mating a classic, without melanin on the body, with a Spangleback, with melanin, we are injecting a new genetic load into the lineage. This ensures that the breed does not become inbred and weak. It's a balancing act. The Spangleback is the reservoir of strong genes that allows the classic to maintain its beauty without losing its health and vitality. Those who ignore this rule are breeding birds that may seem perfect but are genetically on the path to self-destruction. The plumage, the definitive guide to choosing the parents. The plumage of a London Fancy Canary is its signature, and knowing how to interpret it is the key to selecting the parents. For mating, you need a clinical eye, focusing not only on the color, but on the quality and texture. Choose a classic with silky, luminous plumage and the sharpest possible contrast between the yellow/white body and the black wings/tail. When selecting the Spangleback, the focus should be on the melanic markings. A good Spangleback should have well-defined dark spots, but not excessively, and the plumage should be velvety. The combination of silky plumage on one side and velvety on the other helps maintain the genetic balance. It's like mixing two different textures to create a stronger and more beautiful fabric. Don't be fooled by London Fancy Canaries that seem perfect at first glance. The quality of the plumage and the contrast are everything. The secret of the black horny parts. We've talked about plumage, but now we're getting to a detail that separates excellent London Fancy Canaries from the rest. The true secret of the genetics behind its beauty isn't just in the feathers, but in its horny parts. I know, it seems like a small detail, but it's a detail that tells the story of the entire breed. A top London Fancy, one that wins shows, must have a beak, legs, and nails that are an intense black, almost black as coal. This characteristic isn't just aesthetic, it's living proof of the purity of its lineage. Do you remember our discussion about the link to the lizard canary? The lizard is famous for its black horny parts. This genetic heritage is crucial. If your London Fancy Canary has a light or pinkish beak and nails, it's a sign that its melanic genetics are weak, and no matter how clean its body looks, it doesn't have the right material. It's a clear sign that the mating was not done correctly. The search for perfection begins with the plumage, but it ends with a close inspection of every small detail. The ideal age of parents for reproductive success. Genetics and plumage are crucial, but they are worth nothing if the foundation is fragile. And the foundation, my friends, is the age of the parents. A very common mistake, especially among inexperienced breeders, is to try to mate very young London Fancy Canaries. A male that hasn't completed his first molt, or a female that has barely left the nest, are simply not ready. The female runs a huge risk of having problems with egg-laying, known as egg binding, while the male can be an ineffective breeder. The ideal age to start a London Fancy pair for breeding is around the first year of life, that is, after the first molt. At this point, the males are at the peak of their fertility, and the females are ready for laying and the challenge of raising chicks. If you wait another year, you will have more experienced and stronger birds. Mating older birds, over 5 to 6 years old, can result in decreased fertility and unfertilized eggs. Patience in choosing the parents is not limited to genetics and plumage. It is also about respecting the bird's biological cycle to ensure the success and vitality of the clutch. London Fancy X Lizard. The forbidden mating? And now we come to the most controversial topic of all. The question everyone wants answered. Can we mate a London Fancy Canary with a lizard canary? Historically, as we've seen, they are practically genetic siblings, and the mutation that created the London Fancy is linked to the lizard lineage. However, for purists, this mating is considered a forbidden act. They believe that crossing them would be a contamination of the breed's purity. But the reality, my friends, is much more complex. A controlled cross between a London Fancy and a high-quality lizard can actually be a powerful tool to strengthen the breed. By reintroducing fresh genes and the vitality of the lizard, it's possible to improve the health of the chicks, fertility, and the quality of the horny parts, which are so important for the London Fancy. It's a risky decision that should only be made by experienced breeders with a clear goal, but it can be the difference between a breed that survives and one that withers from inbreeding. The Spangleback. Why is it the key to perfection? Over the years, I've seen many breeders discard the Spangleback, as if it were a flaw in the breed. This is one of the biggest mistakes a breeder can make. The Spangleback is not a second-rate London Fancy. It is the genetic key to keeping the breed strong and healthy. Remember that the London Fancy mutation that clears the body of melanin is, at its core, a genetic weakness. If we only mate canaries with this characteristic, the lineage will become increasingly fragile. That's where the Spangleback comes in. It carries the genetics that bring vitality and, at the same time, the necessary genes to produce classic beauty. Without it, the breed would wither away. Think of it as the foundation of your structure. The classic is the perfect facade, but the Spangleback is what ensures the structure doesn't fall. For a serious breeder, a good Spangleback is just as valuable, if not more so, than a classic, because it is the promise of a bright future for the breed. My golden pair. A complete and honest analysis. After all this theory and the secrets I've shared with you, it's time to show you my greatest pride. I want to introduce you to my golden pair, my breeding project that follows all the rules I've explained. On one side, we have the classic male. Look at the perfection of his plumage, the intense yellow, the total absence of melanin on his body, and most importantly, the dramatic contrast with his deep black wings and tail. And on the other side, the female, who is a superior quality Spangleback. Notice how her dark spots on her back are well defined, and not excessive. Her velvety plumage, and her incredibly black legs and beak. This is the mating that gives me over 80% chance of getting healthy chicks and, what's even rarer, with the ideal characteristics for exhibitions. The beauty is in the male, but the promise of the future is in the Spangleback female. My friends, breeding the London Fancy Canary is a challenge of patience, science, and art. It's a journey that teaches us that perfection is often found in the combination of what seems imperfect. If you enjoyed joining me on this in-depth analysis, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of our journey, and leave your questions and your own experiences in the comments. Happy breeding or molting to all, and a big hug.